I have a commenter here who's asking, is there any hope for men? Hi, my name is Dr. Natalie Jones. I'm a licensed therapist. This commenter says, hey, Doc, I really appreciate your videos and you as a person. Thank you. I've had a question that was bugging me and is still bugging me. Is there hope for men? I really don't think I can trust any man, even my father. I feel like every one of them is a predator, and I'm really going crazy. I have lost interest in dating and men in general. I really wish for a society outside the patriarchal norm that leads back to, I really wish for a society outside the patriarchal norm. This all leads back to misogyny. Thanks so much for your question. And I'm sorry that you're feeling that way. So when you ask, is there any hope for men? I'm curious, or I'm wondering if the question that you're really asking, is there any hope for me to have a relationship, a healthy relationship with a man? And that really depends on you. I would err on the side that's more positive. So I always remain hopeful. So I said yes. But if you're asking, are there any good men out there? I would also say yes, there are. And I've worked with some, I've met some, I've been friends with some as well. Been friends with some for, a good number of years. And just, I've had positive men in my life. And I know that I've gotten on here quite a bit and I educate you all about harmful relationships, predatory relationships, abuse dynamics and things like that. But with all that being said, I do think there are a lot of great men out there. And I've done posts on that as well. So this isn't my first post. And there's always, there's a few people always out there that's like, I don't think there are, I can't trust it. So I would say you definitely want to, you may want to look at the energy that you're putting out there also, as well as your expectations. Because here's what I say. I've had positive encounters with men, even men who've done bad things. I worked in corrections for quite some time. And so, all the men in there, that were incarcerated had done some bad stuff, but they're not necessarily bad people. And even with that being said, a lot of them still did a lot of positive things, even when there were disciplinary actions. So they weren't all good and all bad, if that makes sense. So there were positive interactions to be had with them. There was I was able to build a therapeutic rapport with them and such. So, one of the things that I've noticed, especially around a lot of content nowadays, is it's all black or white, all good or all bad. Whether it's men or whether it's coming from man or woman, it's very polarizing. And that's not always the case. I will say there are a lot of people out there who have a character that may not be so good, but there's also a lot of good people out there, and you don't want to lose sight of that. I would also say number two is there's when people talk about relationships with the opposite sex or gender, a lot of times that can be rooted in objectification. So either I want to have sex with you, or I want you to be my man or my woman. And if you don't fit into that category, then you're this, right? So it's usually looked at in that frame, especially on social media. In the real world, there could be shades of gray there, but on social media, what I hear a lot of the rhetoric around is you either fit in this box or that box. So you want to be careful about objectifying and looking at people in a certain way and putting them in a specific category, if that makes sense. And I'm not sure what's going on with you and your dad, because I'll only mention him because you brought him up, but I don't know if you've done any work around that. When I say work, I mean work with a professional therapist. A lot of times when people have a relationship with their parent that's not good, they may continue to attract people that are very similar to their parent. It could be sort of a vicious cycle. So that may be an area where you might want to do work, is undoing some of the narratives and undoing some of that dynamic, and reconstructing a relationship that you're more open to with men. And it doesn't have to be romantic. It doesn't even necessarily have to be sexual, but you can have a man as a mentor. You can have a man as a colleague, a peer, a friend, even, where there's no sexual anything, but it could be a positive relationship. You can have relationships with men where you can depend on them. So, if your car gets a flat tire, you have a man in your life that you can call. Hey, I'm stuck on the side of the road and AAA is saying it's going to be 4 hours. Do you think you can help me out? There are also people that can just give you like professional advice, and things like that. People that can mentor you in a way or coach you in a way. And I've had and still do have several of those where they're not charging me anything. I can call them up on the phone if I've got a problem, and they're there for me in that way. And it's a very positive interaction, and they're just happy to help and send me on my way. So I would encourage having people like that in as many areas as you can, whether it's like finances, whether it's like parenting, maybe going to college, or like just whatever field that you work in now. You can always have a mentor, or a person that you can call on for guidance and advice that can sort of help to push you along in that direction with no strings attached. And that could be, and it could be a reciprocal relationship where they can give you advice, and maybe you can treat them to lunch or something like that. And it could just be a relationship that's based on mutual respect, but you have to be open to that. You also have to be in a mental space where you can allow room for that. So if you're leading with, I don't trust men, or all men are predatory, that means that you may not be open to that, or you might feel very suspicious about a person's intentions, even if they're just offering assistance, if they're just offering to show up for you in a platonic way. You may still be guarded and suspicious if you're not open to that. So I would recommend, if you haven't, and you don't have to, but I'm just recommending it, I would recommend maybe doing a little bit of work around that to kind of loosen up that narrative, that rigidity, that all good and all bad type of thinking, black and white thinking around that, and healing from whatever trauma may be there between you and your father figure, because that can really shape you. It can shape your narrative about the world and the people in it. And while I'm saying you, I mean anybody else who also has this issue, because I've heard a lot of men say, I have trust issues. I don't trust any woman. So this can go, just switch the roles and apply it where it fits. And so just think about, whether or not you want to be in a space to do that. And what is the work around that you need to do in order to get to that place, to be open to healthy relationships with men, where you could be a little bit more objective and more open to relationships with men in whatever capacity you feel comfortable to do so. So I hope that helps. Let me know what you think. You guys like, comment, and give me a follow, and definitely share if you found this beneficial, and subscribe to my newsletter linked in my bio for tips and updates on all the great things to come. Thanks so much.